Good morning, everyone. Almost afternoon. Our title today of this session is Stepping Up to Leadership. Stepping up to leadership. Are you curious about that? Well, Nancy Starr-Cassidy, stumbling here, need more coffee, is not your normal Toastmaster. In her 34 years, she has stepped up or been propped up and booted up into many leadership experiences. In 2004, she was elected as to the International Board of Directors and received the Toastmasters Presidential Citation in 2013 for her dedication to mentoring others in leadership. Have you ever been tapped on the shoulder and asked to consider serving in a leadership role? Have you ever been the one tapping someone's shoulder? Many of our leaders start out just that way. And today we're going to be looking at the opportunities available in leadership and how to get started on that next step, whether it's for you or someone else you know. Our presenter is a past international director and a distinguished Toastmaster. Help me welcome Nancy Starr-Cassidy as she started her journey with that little tap on the shoulder. Let's step up. Take the stage, Nancy.
Thank you so much, Colleen, and thank you to all of our guests today, either in person or those of you that are watching through YouTube. I appreciate you taking your time to learn about stepping up to leadership. I'm going to share my screen now, and we all have those moments of bravery where we think we want to go somewhere, and then suddenly we get there and it might look a little scary, and especially sometimes taking that next step. So in the next few minutes, we're going to talk about stepping up to leadership. I know those of you watching might be at different levels of the organization in Toastmasters, in your leadership experience. Hopefully there are some of you that are considering taking on that all-important role as a club leader, and those of you that might be ready to take the next biggest level in the opportunities that are outside the club. Let me share a little bit of my story. My journey was not a straight path. I didn't just go up one step and then the next and then the next. So my journey was not a straight path, and neither will yours be. I know very few people that just take sequential steps up to leadership. And I also want to share with you that my leadership journey has not been perfect, and neither will yours be. No matter how well prepared you are, there are always times when we slip a little bit backwards and have to regain whatever resources or abilities to be able to continue that journey. What I hope, though, that you get from this session is that you know how important it is not to stop. We want to make sure that our leadership journey continues in whatever path it takes. When I joined back in 1988, I didn't even know I needed a Toastmasters. I joined from peer pressure at work, and I was recruited into the organization by a gentleman by the name of Art Nieto. Now, Art Nieto was a distinguished Toastmaster, and I came to learn he was also a past international director, and that man was a driving force. And he was behind every step that I ended up taking on my leadership journey. And it's amazing when you have people who will say to you the words, someday you will be a district governor. The role was called governor at the time. And I remember thinking, I don't know what that is. It sounds pretty scary. But okay, if that's what you think I'm going to be, then I guess I better start paying attention. And so I did. The pictures that you see here are just fairly recent opportunities where I was recognized by the district for the Mike DeCerbo Mentoring Award for being able to help mentor a lot of our district leaders. So our current district director, David Hopper's there. I received the award from him. And then I had a luncheon with some people that are also past international directors or past region advisors. And we were sharing a lot of secrets recently. Now, some of these secrets were given with, let's just say, frosty beverages. And so hopefully we'll have a little bit of fun time as well as some sage advice from some of those leaders. In today's session, we're going to talk about what are the leadership opportunities that are available to you through the Toastmasters program. I'm going to share some important leadership lessons, and in those leadership lessons, we're going to learn what are some of the secrets, what are some of the traits that people really think are important as we begin this leadership journey. We're going to talk about the people that you need to support you on the leadership journey, which also includes ways that you can help support others on their leadership journey. And lastly, the big step, what's next for you? Let's first talk about leadership opportunities, keeping in mind that we are a volunteer organization. Nobody gets paid to do any of this work. And you know the famous saying that opportunity often looks like work. And in some cases, that is true. Some of the jobs are and require more work than other jobs. So how do we help make those opportunities a little less scary and a little bit easier for all of us who are so busy in our lives to be able to take advantage of them? Let's begin with the list of what jobs are available to you. I'm going to assume that everyone on this session is familiar with the fact that there are leadership opportunities within the club. Obviously, every club has an opportunity to serve in 7 different officer capacities. And I'm going to assume that most of you are familiar with those opportunities and or have even served in them. And if you haven't been a club officer, then by all means, that is the perfect way to start your journey. Assuming that you already have that level or are curious about what's beyond that, this is what's available to you. And these roles are all explained on the link that I have at the bottom of the page on the Toastmasters.org site. In District 3, which is the state of Arizona Toastmasters, for those of you that are here in District 3, we have appointed area director positions. I know some districts actually still elect theirs. When I served as a area governor, it was referred to back in the 90s when I served. That was an elected position. I did have to meet with the clubs in my area and be elected as an area director. But here in District 3, our incoming district director will review applications for those people who are interested in serving as area director. And that is probably, for most people, the most common entry into service beyond the club, because we all have to serve at a district officer position for those of you interested in getting your distinguished Toastmaster. And that is probably the most common path. As an area director, we serve and support the clubs within a geographic area similar to ours. And it's a great way to get a lot of support and be able to step up and serve. But we want you to be aware that there are so many other opportunities that are available to you. We need all kinds of leaders to help support our area and division contests. The Toastmaster program requires speechcraft, youth leadership, serving as a club coach, sponsor, or mentor. These are opportunities for you to go beyond your club, help support other clubs, help introduce Toastmasters to new groups. And the benefit of those particular roles is those service opportunities also apply towards your Distinguished Toastmaster Award. You should always be looking forward, even if you're brand new to Toastmasters journey. You should be thinking forward to what does it take to take full advantage of your pathways learning experience. There's also a number of district committee roles. I had the opportunity to serve on a couple of committees early in my leadership opportunity. One was an administrative role. We used to have a database chair that kept track of all of the contact information for all of the various leaders and committee people. And I also served on the judges training committee, and I've led the Toastmasters Leadership Institute a number of times. All just great ways to meet people, get to know and understand district roles. The advanced roles are, by a majority, are elected positions, and those are the opportunity to serve as division director, club growth, program quality, and district director, and then on to international roles. The region advisor role is appointed, and the international director role is elected. I don't know if there are any questions about any of these roles, but I'm happy to take a moment to answer any questions if someone has any about these roles.
There's nothing in the Q&A or chat at this time, Nancy.
All right. If something comes to you, I tend to run an informal program. Feel free to enter those either in the chat or into the Q&A, and we'll be sure to get those questions answered. So now that you know there are leadership opportunities, what does it take to be successful in those roles? And these truths, if you will, are true no matter where you are in the leadership journey. And a lot of these traits apply to the real world as well. If you're worried or interested in being able to step up in your own organization, I think you'll find that these are universal truths. The first one I absolutely love, which is a Walt Disney classic. The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. We all took the Toastmaster Promise when we joined this organization, that we agreed to serve when called upon to do so. And I know that everyone lives a very busy life, but there's different levels of commitment, of different opportunities and ways to serve. But our entire organization works through volunteers. So it's important that you take your turn when called upon to do so. I reached out to two past international directors that I've had the opportunity to get to know and serve with. And I love this quote from Jim Sultan, who is here in District 3. He recently moved to Arizona. And he said, "The most valuable lesson I learned, the most difficult to master, is patience." One key piece of advice that I wish someone had taught me earlier in my leadership journey is to step away from the keyboard. You have to have patience and not let your emotions take over. As a leader, you're going to be challenged. People are going to question your decision or what the heck you're doing. And it's a natural response to want to defend yourself, but defending yourself doesn't necessarily gain you anything in the leadership world. You have to have the patience to listen and understand, not defend yourself. You can certainly explain your action, but you don't want to make the mistake of trying to defend yourself. Another awesome gentleman, past international director Ralph Wallace, often would say this in all of our trainings, is that 1 month of planning in July saves a lot of heartache in April, May, and June. Again, our Toastmaster year begins on July 1st. And it's so important that you and your team take the time to really understand where you're going, how you're going to get there before you start doing. Because then you're not scrambling at the end of the Toastmaster year. And we've seen too many people being forced to work really hard in the last couple months of their term because they really didn't have an idea of where they wanted to go at the beginning of the year. So patience and planning, two incredibly great skills that, quite frankly, after 34 years, I'm still practicing and learning. Another great message came from past international director Don Griffith, and he shared with me that simply saying yes is the most powerful tool we have, because he feels that he's been paying dues for 25 years. And he still hasn't learned everything yet. So he gives careful and thoughtful consideration before saying yes, but he tries to say yes as often as he can when he is called upon to help, because he knows that this is an opportunity to either help someone or to learn something. And that's how he feels he gets his money's worth. And it reminds me so much of the quote often used by past international president Helen Blanchard, which is, if you can get out of Toastmasters everything you can get out of Toastmasters, you will never get out of Toastmasters. And quite frankly, I find that after 34 years of Toastmastering to be quite true. Tim Swearingen, another past international director, is often quoted as saying, "You have 1 year to serve and the rest of your life to think about it." And I love this quote for so many reasons, because it reminds me when you're serving in a position, you want to be present. You want to be able to say, think about what is actually happening, because believe it or not, a Toastmaster year goes by very fast. There's so much to do and so many shiny objects. So you want to be present. And the other poignant part of this is that a large part of what you're doing in a volunteer leadership position is relationships. And there are so many times when relationships are impacted. And I'm going to say that 90% of the time, when there's a negative impact on a relationship, it wasn't intended to be that way. That's how it was interpreted and not handled correctly. And we've lost leaders. We've lost people, members from the organization because of unintended consequences. And those are the things, quite frankly, that when I look back on some of my past leadership positions are the things I most regret, is not being able to handle the relationships properly. Oh, I got things done. And I'm proud of a lot of those things. But some of the things that I think about and regret are those lost relationships. And that leads me to this quote by myself. And some of you on this call, I know, have heard this more than once. But if you want someone to think something's important, then you need to act like it's important. And that was an eye-opener to me when I served at the time. It was the role was called Lieutenant Governor Education and Training. It's now called Program Quality Director. And that individual is responsible for the program at the district conference. We had past international president Robert Barnhill visiting us, and I can still remember him behind the scenes asking me a question. He said, "What's the most important challenge that you have as a district leader?" And at the time I said, "Well, gosh, it's getting clubs to distinguished status." And he said, "That's interesting, because I'm conference. I'm taking a look at your programs, your things that you're doing here. And yet that's not evidently important to me or obvious to me that it's important to you. That really made me stop and think about what I'm doing as a leader. I was so caught up in the stuff that I lost track of what's important. Another confession. When I served as Lieutenant Governor of Marketing, that role is now called Club Growth Director. And that role is so critical to the meeting the goals of the district, the building new clubs, keeping and retaining new clubs and members. When I served in that role, our district did not achieve distinguished status. And it wasn't until months later that I actually realized that that was my failure to meet my goals. I got distracted. I lost track of what the important thing was that me and my teams should have been working towards. And so that is why I use this quote so often is, if you want someone to think something's important, please act like it. Which leads me to this slide. What is most important? For those of you that are looking to achieve success at the club level, you're stepping into those all-important club roles, you should have internalized the club mission. The club mission is what's important. Are you providing a positive and supportive learning environment in which your members are going to be able to achieve their goals? For those of you that are stepping beyond that and serving in a district capacity, do you know what the district mission is? Building new clubs and supporting all clubs in achieving excellence. Don't get distracted by things that are not part of the mission. When you want to do something new or try something new, I'm hoping you're asking yourself, how does this help the district mission, the club mission, etc.? And the last point I want to make before I start taking questions is, do you know what the Toastmasters International core values are? Integrity, respect, service, and excellence. If you have not internalized these yourself, then I would recommend you stop and reflect before you step into the leadership, because these are important at every single level. Before I go on to the next slide, I'm actually going to stop sharing and make time for some questions or comments.
Okay, you do have a comment from Shelley, and she says, Nancy, your year of service starts when you're elected, not appointed. For example, it starts when you are elected, not on July 1st. Smiling.
And Shelley, yes, you're right. For those people that are elected, you don't get to just sit and bask in the glory of having been elected until July 1st. That's where the planning starts. It's always an interesting position because you have to be very careful not to distract from the jobs and the roles of the people that are still continuing their job till June 30th. But yes, you do still need to start putting together your teams and your ideas. And there is a lot of work to be done, but you don't officially have any power or control until your term officially starts. So it is a delicate balancing act between that important election and officially taking the position.
Right. Doesn't that tie to that quote by Ralph? 1 month of planning in July saves a lot of heartache in April, May, and June.
Exactly.
I liked a few of your quotes a lot, so I was writing them down. You have a question? What are some things that would help get elected?
I will tell you The most important things to get elected are the people that are going to surround you, which will segue into my next segment. The most important person that you have, if you are seeking an elected position role, is that you need to have someone who serves as a campaign manager. And ideally, that person should have held that position in the past. I see a lot of cases where people who don't really understand the role are guiding you into seeking a role. And then that means you're probably not prepared when you actually get elected to that role. So it's very important, if you are seeking an elected position, to surround yourself with the people who understand what it takes to do that job. And we'll talk more about that in a moment.
Next question. Is there a list on the D3 site of past officers?
There are a list of the current officers. There are a list of all of the past district directors or district governors on the D3 site, but I don't know that they include like everyone who's ever been an area director or division director. That would be a very cumbersome list, because you have to remember District 3 has existed since 1938. And although many of those leaders are not with us anymore, we do have truly hundreds of people that are still active in Toastmasters that have been past leaders.
And that seems to be all the questions for now.
All right.
To the next segment.
Terrific. So I will return to sharing the screen. And we will move on to that all-important section, which is, let's start talking about people. I ask anyone who is moving up to the next level, who are you bringing with you? Because nobody does the work all by themselves. No matter what level of leadership you're in, you need to have support. You need to have assistants. You need to have handlers. You need to have worker bees. And let's talk a little bit more about what that looks like. I'm going to begin with a very, very important role, and that is mentors. Having served on the International Board of Directors means that I have been on the front stage in so many capacities at the International Convention, where there are thousands of attendees, at district conferences where there's hundreds of attendees, at various clubs and venues. So I have met thousands of people, or spoken to thousands of people. And there is nothing more exciting when someone comes up to me and tells me that I've changed their world, that something that I said impacted them and changed the trajectory of either their membership, their understanding of the organization, their understanding of how to apply the skills. And I love that. But I also get people who I don't know that will come up and say, I'm so glad you're my mentor. Well, if I don't know you that well, it means I'm not really your mentor. Because a mentor is a person that you have a relationship with. A mentor is a person that you trust to tell you the truth. One thing I love about Toastmasters is that 99% of us are really nice. As a matter of fact, sometimes we're too nice. And there are times when we need not just a motivational evaluation of our performance, we need the truth. We need someone to say, you're not ready yet, and here's why. Here's what you need to learn. So when you surround yourself with mentors, you need people who will be honest. And those mentors can be from any stage of leadership. There are people who might not have served in the role that you are seeking, but have a better understanding of you and your strengths and what you bring to that role. So you need to have mentors who know the role. You need to have mentors who know you and are willing to be honest and help you as you move up through that journey. There are very few people that when they say you're ready for this role, they really are. So you need those mentors to help you get ready. You need those people that believe in you. Now, I was fortunate enough that Art Nieto for me was this person who believed in me, and he was also my mentor because he had experience in the role. But when you're seeking a role, you need to look around and say, so who is really supporting you? Who's going to show up when you need them? Because we have a lot of people that go, oh, I like you. I think you should run for this role. So I believe in you. And I call those people like, Facebook friends. They might like you, but are they really gonna get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go with you, to drive down to Tucson for a TLI, to be there with you while you're working? So how much do they believe in you? I always say, who's that person that's going to bail you out of jail when you need it? Who's going to answer the phone when you call at midnight because you need some help? Those are the people that you need. And hopefully there's a lot of those people. I was humbled by the number of people who, when I sought leadership, stepped up and said, I'll be there to help you. Whatever that looks like, I'll be there. So that's what I'm saying. It's who are the people that are tapping you on the shoulder and saying, you need to move up to the next level. Or maybe they see you at a level even higher and be able to help you on the steps to get there. What are those steps? So people who believe in you are definitely part of your tribe. And then lastly, you need people who are going to get things done. I will tell you something that I see a lot in Toastmasters. I see people who are hard workers. Oh my gosh, they're doing amazing things and dedicating so much time to this organization, but they're doing all the work themselves. And they move up into leadership. And there's no way in some of these leadership roles that you can do all the work yourself. I see them try, I see them struggle, and I see them fail. And then I see them leave the organization. And that breaks my heart because it meant that that person didn't have a mentor and didn't have a true tribe that was really there to getting things done. Well, I mentioned earlier that if you're seeking a position for an elected position, you definitely need to have people that know how to run campaigns, that know how, that have the connections and understand the process, understand the policies, and will keep you all on the straight and narrow, that will make you be where you're supposed to be and talk to the people you're supposed to talk to. Those of us that have served in elected positions know we need people that, for a lack of a better term, I call handlers. And for me, oh my gosh, Trish Blackwelder is the perfect handler because she is so organized and she made sure I didn't get distracted, that I was where I was supposed to be, that I had my pin on straight and my badge on the right shoulder and all of those important things, so that when I did go out and work with the people and get the work done, that the little things were already taken care of for you. So you need people like that that are really going to be there to help get things done. Here's a very important lesson that I learned, and this had to be 25 years ago. Past International Director Lydia Boyd attended a District 3 conference. She was visiting from California, and she was talking about leadership, and she introduced this concept of Operation Little Bit. One of the biggest frustrations that we have, even at the club level, it's so hard to get people to step up. If you approach a member and say, gosh, won't you take on the vice president education role? And they're like, no way. I can't. I have so much to do. And accept that, but then turn around and ask them for a little bit. Would you be able to help me create a chart of where all of the members are currently in their Pathways program? Oh, they'll say, well, that is something that I think I could wrap my head around. I could do that little bit for you. Then you ask someone else. If someone's ready to process their education award, would you be able to help me with that? Yes. So now you've got a team of 2. And then you ask a third person to do a little bit more. Now suddenly, it's a lot easier to go and ask someone else, would you be willing to take on this role? Because I already have 3 people that are going to do most of the work for you. And suddenly, that person will say, why, yes, I'd be happy to take that role since you've already helped me build a team. And you understand the role and you've broken it down and little people are doing little bits and suddenly it's not such an overwhelming job. So using the concept of Operation Little Bit has worked wonders for me in being able to help find people who have different skills and saying, how could this person add to my team and do that little bit so that this work is not as scary and hard as I originally thought it might be. I'm going to open up for a few questions at this point or observations.
You have one. The mentors give you feedback and criticism to help you be the best you can be. Smiling. Oh, yes, you will see this at conference. Ooh, a teaser.
I love this. So yes, and sometimes as I said, the truth can feel overwhelming. But don't be discouraged. And also that's why the importance of having multiple mentors, because it might be my opinion that this person needs to work on this. And if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't feel correct, that's something you want to go validate with another person. And so it is important to have multiple people that you're talking to. And if you're hearing the same thing from more than one person, then it's probably something you need to work on.
I see no other questions. Anyone? You have a question? Here we go. Should mentors be less like a hammer or more like a guide to help build Toastmasters towards success outside the district?
Absolutely. So here's the thing about the mentoring relationship. The responsibility of the relationship comes from the protege, the person being mentored. And yes, some of us tend to be a little more direct. And so you want to seek a mentor that is going to match the style. There are times as a mentor that we do have to drop the hammer. It's part of our responsibility. If the person is not getting the subtle hints and the suggestions, then sometimes, yes, the hammer does need to fall. But that's, again, why you want to seek multiple people as mentors. Each person is going to bring something different to you, but you as the protege have the power to direct the mentoring relationship. If all you're getting is hammer, then it's up to you to provide feedback to the mentor saying, that's not working for me. Because if it's not a successful relationship, then you move on to a different mentor. So,
how many mentors is recommended that one person should have?
And again, the number is up to you. I sort of equate it to the level of leadership. If you're going to club leadership, then having 1 or 2 mentors is probably adequate. But if you're seeking the role of international director or even higher, then you should have at least 4, because different people have different lessons to teach you. And you might not have them all at the same time. You might seek one to give you guidance about how the mechanics of the role works. You might have another one that's helping you deal with personal relationships. So Again, the role and how frequent and how many is really up to you, but take advantage of people who open themselves to being your mentor.
Good question. Very true. Is one of the comments was. So that's the end of those questions at this time. Should we go on?
Yes. I'm now going to share with you a couple of really big, helpful ideas. This is where I want you to make sure, if you haven't been writing things down, we want you to write these down. All right. We already talked about Operation Little Bit. I hope you definitely wrote that one down. If you have never read this book, Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High, add this to your reading list immediately. When I was getting up through leadership, I was terrified of having critical conversations, confrontations with someone that I might disagree with. And I put off a lot of conversations and until things got to a boiling point. And then it's hard to recover when you let things go that long. So as a leader, you're help directing other people, you're looking for support. I mentioned earlier that some of my biggest regrets were people that were lost to this organization because of things I said or did. And I was directed to read this book in the 90s. And these lessons are universal and still true today. A couple of the most important things that I remember that impacted me directly is understanding people's intent, because I got so upset when people misinterpreted my intent, that when I said something that they felt my intent behind it was to be harmful. And I would be shocked when they would take it that way. Likewise, when someone said or did something to me and I would take the intent that they were meaning me harm. And I'll give you a real life example. We've all been cut off in traffic. You know, that jerk that pulls in front of you. And obviously the blah, 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 fill in the blank person did that on purpose. They did that just to make my life miserable. Now let's think about it in a different way. Have you ever accidentally cut someone off? And didn't you feel horrible because you didn't notice them or didn't realize that suddenly I'm in a pickle and I really need to get over there? And your intent is not to harm or hurt anyone behind you. But guess what? They all think you did it on purpose. And so it's understanding the intent behind an action. So our knee-jerk reaction to something is really have to stop and think, what's their intent? And when you're conversing with someone, sometimes, especially if it's a difficult conversation, you need to let them know what your intent is. Now, folks, that tip applies not only to Toastmasters, but it applies to your work, it applies to your kids, it applies to your spouse. By giving grace of intent, by asking the question, what was the intent behind this comment? Because when I first read it, it concerned me, will lead to a lot of very positive conversations. And also, I understood that confrontation is really about 5 minutes of discomfort where you have to bring someone in. But if you acknowledge, listen, this is uncomfortable, here's where I'm coming from, here's my intent, then suddenly you have an open conversation. It completely changes it. I also see a lot in this organization of leaders who set no expectations and no commitment to the people on their team, and yet they're mad at them for not doing what you expected. So we need to understand that you can't hold people accountable for something that they haven't agreed to. So we need to make sure you take the time to let them know, here's what I think success looks like. Here's what I want the positive outcome to be. And then if you're all working towards that, that completely changes the nature of the conversation. And I've seen people leave the organization because they're not performing to the expectation. And it all means you have to have a conversation with that person. They need to understand the expectations and commitment. And then they need to be given a choice. They can either agree to do the work that you are presenting to them. You need to provide resources for them to be able to be more successful, or you need to allow them to leave and recognize that maybe this is not the correct time or position, and be able to let them go in a manner that doesn't force them to have to leave the organization. So this is a very, very important concept. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment.
You have a question?
Yes.
Will this help me at work, that book?
Absolutely. I will tell you, I would never have been moved up into a manager position if I hadn't made these changes. And I will also share with you that one of the proudest moments I had in my career was that when a position came open on my team, I would have double the number of applicants, because the reputation for me being a fair and fun leader to work with had gotten out. And so people wanted to come to my team because I knew I would help them learn, and I knew I would help them succeed. And they knew I would be honest with them about what the expectations were and whether or not they were meeting them. So it was probably the greatest achievement of my life. And I will be honest with you, if I hadn't read this book, I don't know that I would have had the personal EQ to be able to grow into that kind of a leader. So yes, it can definitely help. Now, have I mastered this with my spouse? No, but I'm still working. There's still hope. All right.
There's another book that someone's recommending. It's Leaders Eat Last. And it's supposed to be a great book by Simon. I'm going to mess up this name. Simon
Sinek.
And thank you.
You're welcome. And I will tell you, that is the perfect segue to my next secret. It's almost like I paid someone to do this. All right. Because what is the next big step? This is the big ask that I'm going to mention to everyone. And guess who said it? Simon Sinek, author of Eat Last and Start With What. 2 awesome books. But I can't help but to share this important lesson. The responsibility of leadership is to create more leaders. This is where our organization, every organization, needs your help, because here's an amazing secret. It doesn't matter where you are in the Toastmasters organization. You could be a member of 3 months. To a new member walking in the door, guess what? You're a leader because you know more than they do. You have 3 months of experience that you can share with them. So when you tell them that you see they have potential, guess what? They're going to believe you. Think of how powerful this organization could be if each one of you takes a moment to look at the people who are natural leaders, who have the ability to go forward, who have strengths that we've identified and seen in those earlier slides. What if you took a moment to tell them that you see that in them? You see them moving up in the organization. And wouldn't this be a better place if we all took a moment to just share that important lesson? You have the power to help create more leaders. You have the power to help solve the problem we have. Because sometime it will be your turn to lead, And other times it will be your turn to help support another leader. That's why this journey is so crooked and leads so many different directions, because there are times I step back from a formal role in order to help support another person who really needed me to be there for them. And I've learned so much along the way. Every leadership opportunity, every committee I served on gave me something that helped me get to the next step. And that's the most important lesson that I can leave with you for today's session. And with that, I'm ready to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, you have a comment. Oh, it's kind of right what you were saying. Also start with why by Simon again. Though written typically for business owners, many of these lessons can apply to our life in Toastmasters District 3. Nice comment.
Yes. We always have to remember that in Toastmasters, we don't have the power of the paycheck. So anybody can walk away at any time or say, no, I'm not going to do that. And that brings up some interesting leadership opportunities. And that's why that Crucial Conversations book is so important, because again, it's important to save a relationship and be able to encourage people to continue in their communication and leadership journeys.
We have one in the questions. How do I know if I'm ready for district leadership? There's a great question.
There is a great question. And the truth is, none of us are ready. So I would have told you prior to achieving my election into what I call the trio, the district leadership top leaders, I would have said I was the most prepared person. I had talked to people. I had Art Nieto as a mentor. But when you actually get into the role, you realize, oh my gosh, there's a lot I don't know and I wasn't ready for. That's part of the Toastmasters journey. Is I will quote a past district governor out of the British Isles, Jean Gamester. She's currently a candidate for international director in Region 10. And she's absolutely brilliant, because she has a quote that talks about the fact that every leadership role is like a stiff new jacket when you put it on, and then you wear it and you're trying to fill it out and it doesn't quite fit right. But by the end of the term, it becomes a soft and comforting jacket that is fitted perfectly to your own style. And then at the end of the year, you have to sadly take it off and give it to someone else. And so we're never really ready. However, if you are looking for a role in district leadership, the most important thing is find a person who has served in that role and ask them if you are ready for that role, because they'll be the one that will tell you, yes, you're ready, or gosh, maybe you need to work on these particular skills, and then you'll be ready to step into leadership. We all have a path to take.
Okay, another question. Are there any limitless tests per se when you go up the leadership, either in District 3 or outside the district?
Oh, gosh. So here's the thing. We're a volunteer organization, and we've had people that have gotten into roles that just quite frankly have achieved or gone beyond their capacity to serve in that role. And we do our best to try to support them. The failures are usually because they don't understand relationships, or they don't really understand what's important to that role and haven't found the right people to support them. Or somebody has moved up just too quickly and they haven't just achieved that. But it's a Toastmasters organization. So when you see people who aren't performing or don't seem ready, but they're in the role, you have to do what you can to support them. and be able to give some honest feedback and whatever you can do to add value to the equation, because that's the reality. It's not a perfect system. And sometimes we just take those who are willing.
Someone put in the comments, another one of the Tim Swearigan, it's just Toastmasters.
Exactly. And I have gotten caught up in that, where I have gotten very vocal and critical about certain things. And Tim is also one of my people who help me just do the, seriously, Nancy, this is just Toastmasters. Let's know, as another friend said, there are no little babies dying because of the mistake you just made. Let's just step back for a minute and put things in perspective. And then what have you learned? And now how do you move forward?
Good points. Any other questions, anyone? I really wish, and I know we all wish, to sincerely thank you, Nancy, for putting this wonderful presentation together. Those slideshows, it was so interesting and thought-provoking. Leadership ideas. You can check this presentation out later, as I told you, or share it with your friends. It'll be a YouTube video. We're getting a lot of comments saying, thank you, Nancy. Thanks, Nancy. You rock. Just wonderful things. Great job. And we really sincerely thank you. Have a marvelous afternoon, everyone. Take care.